Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to February with 60-degree weather, sun shining, and a lot going on in the space of public education.
Thank you for welcoming us.
Mhm.
What's going on?
It is going good. This week has been, catchphrases like the stock market has definitely been like the stock market. Sick babies, money falling from the sky, map testing ending, basketball games, snow days since the last time we came on. So it is a lot going on.
It's
How's your week been going for you, Sonya?
I'm hanging in there. It's been an okay week. Like you said, there's a lot going on in education. And I think what I have to celebrate is yesterday having the opportunity to amplify the parents' voice here in Nashville and in the state to talk about um, the first, you know, few days or the first days of the pandemic up until now. So
Mm-hmm.
that will be coming soon, and just
Okay.
being able to talk about some of the stories that we've heard as we've organized parents over the last, I want to say, 4 school years of COVID.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, I'll tell you my interaction too with parents. It's been a little bit around bullying. It's
Mhm.
been a little bit around helping parents like find support to get the optional schools. The deadline, I know we'll talk more about it, but the deadline is coming up this Friday, and parents are going from enrollment centers to the board to their friends and family to get the help. So I look forward to kind of talking about that.
Yeah, yeah, it's
So yeah, some of the other topics today has been the school book debate. I know you talked a little bit about it on Monday. People out here burning books in a heap of fire, close, not in Nashville, but very close to Nashville. We want to definitely talk about this new education funding proposal that's supposed to be coming out by mid-February. It was an article detailing it about Bill Lee and the new monies that are going to be pumped in, not just this year, but the reoccurring years. We want to do a video in the spirit of Black History Month and everything that's going on in education. We always talk about K through 12, but we also want to talk about higher education. Dale Freeman is a local philanthropist here. Had an interview where he just talked about some of the things that matter most to him when it comes to education. Talked a little bit about his journey. And then last, want to talk about, it's a high school in Memphis that's launching a rigorous African American studies class. And so we'll dig deep into that, see how much interest we have from our parents, and we'll get this party started. I see we got Scott on here. How you doing, Scott? See, we got Rhea. Come on and share this out. Let people know you own. Tap in. Let us know you here, and we'll keep this train moving.
yeah, yeah. What we gonna hit first? Like that was a packed agenda with so much
Yeah,
to be talking.
yeah. Yeah, can I start it off the right way? We want to start it off with a little bit of a video from Daryl Freeman. Just listening to the video and looking through it and just reading his journey. You would never know where he came from if you look at where he is right now. But it really stresses the importance of education, even though he's had a journey. Like he got through the journey by being able to get an education. So we'll pull that up and then we'll highlight it and then we'll discuss a little bit afterwards. But let me pull this through.
You need to know who you're teaching and not to give up on them. But you don't know what they could possibly be. But their job is not just to teach, but to inspire people to be their best. And so now pull that, I showed them my transcript. And at that time I was a millionaire many, many times over. But to show them that, just because a kid's not doing well, reach out to them. So if you see me flunking out, pull me aside and say, hey, you can do better. Let me help you. But not just allow somebody to flunk out and leave the campus without a phone call. or somebody who's not coming to class often, not to call them and say, hey, what's going on with you? So, but that was my Chattanooga State experience.
Imagine making premium cocktails at
We need a cocktail after that one. John, you on mute.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that jerked my tears. There was a lot of emotion there, and we always talk about how there's a danger in a single story.
Hmm.
Here, this man is a multimillionaire and had a GPA. I want to say a negative GPA. You can't get nowhere with that.
He said it was 1, 2, 3, 4.
That means you just showed up to school.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a danger in a single story. What he was saying there was something going on with him. And nobody noticed, nobody cared.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cared to ask. And I think that was very powerful. Very powerful.
Yes, indeed. I think, and I think his experience was talking about college, but even as we think about our K through 12 and mainly high school, one, you never know what a kid is going through. You never know what's happening back at the home. You never really know the potential unless you fully invest in the potential. And I think, you and me both have stories, and there's many others who have stories like it, where it was so easy to give up. It was surrounded by you were people who gave up, who seemed like they were maintaining at the moment. And, you look back a decade later and you appreciate the action of not giving up, but also looking back at people who did. And it's a hard road forward. It's a hard road forward.
It is. And it's not that he didn't have the intellect, because obviously he is genius.
Mm-hmm.
It was that he really was missing what I like to call like all eyes on him. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we talk about having personalized learning plans.
Okay.
Because that is a way to be in tune with a child, to find out what inspires that child, as an individual, as a visionary. And I'd like to think that our teachers will start thinking of themselves as visionaries, right? Or people who will develop the leadership in children to have visions for themselves. And, I think the vision that comes from our education system should be about them reaching their greatest potential, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the vision for the child should be whatever that vision is set forth for them. And if we're unable to tap into that, what are we doing?
What are we really doing? I think for me, and I'm pretty sure you're the same, like you realize people in your life and teachers, I can think about 2 or 3 teachers. I think about my first grade teacher who taught me how to read, Miss Weaver. I think about my 4th grade teacher who was like just a white ally. Like she had us reading Harriet Tubman. She was teaching us about, solar energy. But the fact of like reading Harriet Tubman in the Underground Railroad in the 4th grade, like the whole class in a mixed school, not an all black school, it was mixed, primarily black, but it was about 60-40. Like those were the strong things. Like I remember my 11th grade English teacher who, when I flunked, I came to her in tears and she gave me another chance to make it up over the semester break. Like, and those are the times where, just getting that support and opportunity for redemption, can keep our life on the right course.
I mean, but I think you just said something too about when you talk about reading and you talked about Harriet Tubman. Let's talk a little bit about what was happening there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a thing called comprehension, reading comprehension.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that you develop, some of the ways that you develop reading comprehension is making sure that child can identify with the community around them. That they if you read about Florida, that you can show them what Florida looks like. It develops their mind. Like if I don't have any relationship to what I'm reading, then I'm going to have difficulty comprehending and even dreaming. Right? A lot of people say when children read, they should get in a book and start dreaming. But if you can't relate to that, then you can't dream.
It's hard.
Yeah, like and so thank you for sharing that, because you were able to connect to that, and that developed, and that educator understood that somehow, some way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, even reading and making funny noises like, hi, my name is, and she was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, you should continue to do that. And, here I am trying to do it to be, agitate people. And then I was like, oh, like it was accepted. And it's that special type of teacher of knowing who the student is and what are some of the things that we can get to motivate them. And I look at that video from Daryl Freeman just going back, and it just shows that although he flunked out, somebody motivated him, and he turned that motivation into, I guess he said it himself, he said a millionaire several times over. So aspirational goals out here.
Oh, but we don't want to take all them chances. Don't mean no harm. Like, I'm so glad that turned out all right for bruh. Well, there are too many people that don't work out like that. So I want to come and like bag that thing up a little bit. Like, we don't want to make it a habit of having to keep having these conversations. So yeah.
At the end of the day. At the end of the day.
He said to teach and inspire.
So as we think about like the teaching and inspire, in a few weeks, maybe next week, maybe the week after, maybe even Friday, like we are going into the stage where we're going to get an updated funding formula, right? They're pumped, I want to say 250 million into this time around. I got to look back at the numbers, but the formula, which was, I guess, BEP, maybe they'll keep it BEP 3.0. Maybe they'll change it into something different. But for you, Sonia, if you had the power to dictate like how our dollars go as we look at this new formula, like what are some of the things would you do to make it more, equity is starting to be used like very broadly, but how would you use it to make sure, as our friend Thomas said, in the most impoverished communities?
I think that we have to make sure that formula is weighted. Weighted for Black children. And what do I mean by that? Let me break that down. We have receipts that Black children are undereducated and miseducated. We have those receipts. There are multiple root causes for that happening. And because we know the root causes, because we have the research, we have the information. Hell, we got 400 plus years of slavery and oppression.
Come on now.
Do we need any more? We have to make sure that formula is weighted to make sure that children of color, Black children in particular, have the outcomes that they need to have. Now, what do I mean about an outcome? I want you to picture a bull's eye. Like just in your head, like think about a bullseye, right? Target. We got to make sure that we have a bullseye. That bullseye should be that all children can read, and not just read, but be able to read at and above grade level. That is an example of a bullseye. All those children should be able to do that, and I think that we have to make sure that the formula, the measurement, fits the child. And I think that, I don't think I need to go any further with that.
Yeah.
Like that needs to be the foundation, the reason why we're even doing this is to make sure that we hit the bullseye. And that is making sure that all children, and especially taking into account children of color who have always been left behind, have great outcomes.
I am looking for some. It was a PowerPoint I went through, Sonia, earlier this week, and it really showed the history back from the 1700s of public education. And it talked about, the two-tier system. It talked about, schools for the poor. It talked about, making sure the rich didn't get access or didn't create schools that were only for the rich. And then we look at our communities, right? And we look at like what has stayed the same and what has changed. And when we think about just our brothers, our sisters, we had a family reunions, our cousins before COVID, like the Sunday dinners. And you watch kids who grow up, right? You watch them come in, running and playing in the yard, playing hide and seek. And then another time later on, you see them come in with little peach fuzzes on the mustache. And then another time they're graduated from high school. And then we just have to ask ourselves, like, why are we doing this work? And the reason I'm doing this work, because it's for just too many times I've seen kids go through those stages from elementary, middle, and high school. And then they come out in Nashville and they find themselves in a circle of, where do I work? Do I go to school? Do I provide for my family? And it creates a community, right? That's just different from what Nashville is really experiencing. Right now, Nashville, Sonya, man, they sold out 5 penthouses for $57 million. Not in New York, right here in Nashville.
What that smell like?
$57 million.
What that smell like?
I don't even know. I mean, we grew up watching penthouses in New York, right? Like,
Strokes. Wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Bring it home. First penthouse I ever seen was Different Strokes.
Come on now. I seen it on Home Alone too.
Look, that's the first time I even remember that word was that penthouse they lived in.
So there are people who are coming in, they're going to be at a hotel, and then they're going to get on the elevator, they're going to pass the hotel, and then they're going to be on the top floor, and they're going to have a penthouse. And on one side, it's a whole yard. Like, they got a whole yard where you could come out, bring your dogs,
and the dog poop in it.
Get the whole yard experience, whatever they want to do. Get the whole yard experience, but all in this penthouse.
Shut your mouth.
So when you think about that, and we think about Dominique, Yvonne, Rhea, Thomas, Waukesha, I don't know if she jumping on here, like, that experience is not even in our reach. Like, it is beyond our wildest dreams because we don't have access to education. Now, those people who are living there, let's make some assumptions, Sonya. In order to be in that penthouse, what journey did they have in education? What are some of the schools they went to?
Man, they went to some of the highest performing schools. Their journey was a journey where their schools were focused on outcomes. They were intentional. They said, you know what? We're gonna make sure that folk that graduate from here, they can live in penthouses, and they got a penthouse, and they got a yard on the roof, and they dog can poop in it.
And they dog can poop in it.
In the air. You got so much education, your dog can shit in the air.
Come on now. And those are some assumptions, but let us know, Dominique. Dominique, I haven't seen you on here. Thank you for jumping in. Yvonne, we done missed you. It's been like 4 weeks. We done missed you in the new year. Thank you for jumping back on.
Yvonne, he done called you hell.
But Yvonne used to be on here turned up. Like, I missed that dialogue. She says, my grandbaby speech therapist stated, knowing the words is far different than understanding the words. Studying reading challenges, comprehension levels determine how well we understand when we read. Wow.
Yeah. And it's just like having a missing part of your DNA. Mm-hmm. When we think about when things are missing, like when you don't have a full identity or DNA, things are missing. Like you're going to have issues. I struggle with reading comprehension, and I am 46 years old now. It has nothing to do with my IQ. Why am I accomplished now? I'm accomplished because of my IQ. Mm-hmm. I struggle in life because of the lack of comprehension. And so I have to have different accommodations to help me to comprehend. And it's not, and I do have a disability, but also I receive poor instruction. Mm-hmm. Had I gotten what I needed, my accommodation I would have an accommodation, I would still be able to comprehend. Like, so yeah. Mm.
Yeah, so let me show you what I was comprehending, right? When I'm looking on here. Like that's the yard, right? It ain't no astroturf. That's the
Grass
yard,
in the
right?
air. So you talking about grass in the air?
Trees.
They got trees.
And
Shut
then
up. Shut
you
up.
see the Titan Stadium. Yeah, but the
Oh,
only thing they missing is the dog park.
John, shut up. They got trees.
They got trees. Hold on, let me show you.
Shut your mouth.
Only thing missing is the dog park.
And black folk ain't got nowhere to live in Nashville. And folk coming here getting penthouses with trees and grass where they can dog poop in the air. You kidding me?
Yep, Yvonne says it's a lot on that top floor. Yep, we totally agree. But that's the reason we push. And so they say a closed mouth
Don't get fed.
don't get fed. A closed mouth don't get fed. And in Nashville, we used to ask people last year, like, how much was our MMPS budget? And, I still ask people that today. I asked somebody that on Monday. They was like, 10 million. They thought like, yeah. And then it was like, nah, let me say 20. Like, I ain't going higher than 20. And when I told them $1 billion, and these people have kids in school, they was like, whoa, like, wait a minute. And maybe we don't understand how a budget breaks down, right? Maybe we don't understand.
I don't need to.
Mm.
Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? I don't need to know the ins and out of the budget. What I need to know is how that budget translates to outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't need to know that.
Yeah. And Dominique is still tapping in, and Yvonne, I hear you. We just got Ivory that just checked in, and that's just it. Like when we think about our own kids, like time waits for nobody, right? Like we just don't have the magic tool, the magic remote to hit pause, and life just stops while we give our children, our neighbors, our family members the time to catch up. And one of the things that we're going to be working on, and we'll have more for you, is really understanding how is our system going in your opinion. Like what's working for you, so we can find out the things that may be working for you, and others. What are things that are not working? Like I've been talking to Ms. Moffin this week. Ms. Moffin, if you own, feel free to chime in. But what are some of the things, Yvonne, Kimberly, Ivory, Dominique, what are the things that are working for you in our public school system? And then, like, what are some of the things that are not? Because I think it's real important. We talk about, Sonia says it all the time, like one thing, but she says two is a trend. And when we got two, we start to realize like it may not just be two, it may be 200, maybe 2,000, but it gives us the ability to like tap into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we most definitely have some trends that are very scary.
Mm-hmm.
And life-threatening for a lot of people, life-changing, life-threatening. We're in the it city. We're in the it city. I love it when Kwame said on BET, Disrupting Dismantle. He said we live in the it city. He said it was good top land, enjoying white folk. That's what we're known for. We're not a city that is known to take care of its people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the truth.
Mm-hmm. In a few years, Nashville is going to be a bigger Franklin, and we know what that means. Ivory says, I love the emotional learning, but we need to work on tracking learning loss and how to stop it.
Yes. I'm glad you brought up the word learning loss. I do believe to this day we have learning loss, but I also think that we have something going on, and I don't know what the name of it needs to be, but where children never even got it. So you can't lose something when you had it. And what we're finding is children never had it.
Mm.
like that learning loss is more infinite than we know, right?
Mm,
We thought about learning loss at one point in time as something that occurred during the summertime, right? And then when
mhm.
we went to the pandemic, you know, it was thought of as, you know, learning loss from the time, you know, that they were out of school for COVID. But what are we going to call the loss that children had when they never had what they needed in the first place? What's the name for that?
Mm. What do they call it? Grand larceny, because you stole something from them. You stole something from children that's worth way more than $1,000, which makes it a felony. You know, Ms.
Yeah.
Moffin says after seeing the reports trying to find a school for my daughter when 20% is the best I could find within a 10-mile radius, tears of fear took over. Grand larceny.
The
Grand larceny.
the biggest heist I ever seen in my life. Education, public education is the biggest heist that I've ever seen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Bless your heart, Ms. Maupin. Bless your heart to all the parents out there trying to figure out what to do. I mean, that's a real feeling. And baby, I can relate to that feeling.
Mm-hmm. When we think about, just going back to Miss Wilson's comment, she said, you know, it's the emotional learning, but we need to track on like learning loss. You know, in elementary, when some kids are only 8% of reading on grade level, it
Mhm.
just never started. You know, the system continues, like the money's never stopped, right? So it's almost like one time my toilet wasn't working right. You know, the little thing that you click and then it goes down and the water flows up. Well, something happened. I didn't catch it. I think we went out of town. I came back, Sonya, and that toilet, the water had been running for 3 days. Money going down. It didn't stop. It didn't stop because I wasn't there. It was like, oh, like it's not going to stop. So when we think about the school that has, you know, 12% of the kids out of 100 reading on grade level, the money doesn't stop coming into the school. It keeps coming and it keeps going down the drain until we, like Ms. Wilson says, like, how do we stop it?
Mm, mm, mm. That was something, John.
Mm-hmm.
Money going down the toilet. Mercy.
When I got that bill, yeah, they didn't give me grace. They didn't say, "Oh, we realized there was a problem. Like you didn't really use all this water. There had to be." There was like something going on, but here go the bill.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, we've heard people say that, you know, the school district needs more money. I totally agree that money is needed. But let me be very clear. You got to show us where it's going.
Yep.
You got to show us where it's being invested, and you've got to show us the asset at the end. Like you got to show us the outcome. You got to show us, you know, what you're gonna produce. You got to show me that 50% of children in the school or more are gonna be reading on grade level. Like
Right.
you got to
We can
show
get down with that. Yeah.
right. But what's so bad is schools and systems are afraid to even say that. And I'm inclined to believe it's because they really can't do it.
Mm.
Like they don't want to say we're going to increase literacy by this much next year because I don't think they really believe they can do it. I don't think they know how.
Mm.
I'm calling them out. Is what I'm doing at this moment. I'm calling you out. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Like, got all these programs, got all these nice people, but how the children doing? As my grandma would say, how the children?
Hmm.
How the children? Mm.
How are the children? Yvonne says, looking back, preschools in Nashville are behind the education grid. You know, oh, it is. There are opportunities, and that's why we do this show every Wednesday to like bring it on home, to come up with, to look at challenges and come up with solutions, to look at where we are weak at and come together to be strong. And as we listen to you guys, I'm telling you, it really gives us the passion and the hope to like keep going in the right direction of just making sure that no child is left behind. You know, people didn't like the program. They use strong words to get support, because No Child Left Behind is just what we have seen year in and year out. But yeah, like the time is over. I heard a guy last night at the board really talk about. Well, first let me back up. One of the things that were highlighted that kind of stole the show. One of the speakers came up. He was a bus driver for MNPS, and what he said, he was like, when we're driving a bus, it's two things on the corner. He was like, it's your children. And he was like, it's trash cans. And he was like, when we think about budget, those people who are picking up the trash are making more than what we're picking up your treasure. And so even as we look at funding and we look at Nashville and we look at these high rises and we look at us, like, you know, if you own here living in Nashville, you done seen some stuff change in your rent, your mortgage, your cost of living.
Right.
And when we think about like all the money, like what good is it, right? If Miss Moffin can't still live in her community, if Yvonne got to move to Clarksville, if Elsie got to move to Murfreesboro. Like I see Elsie jumping on here. How you doing, ma'am? Welcome back. But like what good is having a fully funded budget if the people are not here to utilize it? Like look at what's happening. Like Buena Vista closed down, right? And they merged those kids into Jones. But was that the byproduct of, look what's happened in the Buena Vista community in 10 years? Like, where did those kids go? Like, what are we funding? Like, we are losing kids consistently, like Kings Lane. Like, what happened to Lillard? Like, maybe nobody moved back into Lillard. Like, because they are leaving. It's like it's the new Trail of Tears, and it's Clarksville, Springfield. It used to be Antioch, but now it's Laverne, Smyrna, Murfreesboro.
Yeah. Before you know it, there won't be any schools that we recognize. I think that's sad, but we have to ask why. Like, I think it's important to focus on why, and to keep asking why until we get to a solution. And I just believe that if the adults would really get focused, if the adults in the system would listen to parents. I mean, we're seeing like all these comments, like we listen to parents every day, all day long. And the things that they're talking about are so legitimate and so relevant and so collective. And so trendy. And if they would just listen to parents, like ain't nobody gonna keep on hanging around something that you ain't gonna listen to them, and
Right.
that you don't really have an intentional, you're not even intentional about really listening to them and taking the feedback, the things that they're saying, and actually doing something about it, and not just listening in because you got a metrics that you got to meet, or having town halls and things just because if you do that and you have so many people, you get additional funding. Like, ain't nobody playing that game no more. Like, that's just like a relationship, right? Like, if a dude stepped to me and he ain't coming real, like he don't have good intentions, like I'm not trying to date him. And that's the same thing like with our school buildings. It's the same thing with, when you go to Chick-fil-A, they intentionally want to give you good customer service. They want to make sure your food is hot. Why? They want a relationship with you. They want you to come back. They want you every time you go down Gallatin Pike and on Monday through Saturday. They want you to be thinking about, you know what, I want to buy some of them chicken middies and that iced lemonade. Like,
and that line look long, but their service is so good, I ain't gonna be waiting that long. You know, it's the same thing with hospitals. You know, just to invoke Sarah Carpenter back into the conversation, she was just talking about how good her service was for her rehab, and I was like great service is healing, right?
She didn't want to leave. She told me, she said, son, y'all don't want to leave. She didn't want to leave.
But when you got a good school, remember some kids would cry when they had to leave school, or when they couldn't go to school, they crying because they're getting they're being loved on, right? They're getting that affection and that personalized learning. And then you get to the point, like it's just a few schools by the time you get to high school. Like you see tears at Hume Fogg and MLK and maybe NSA. Like they don't want to leave because the service is so good.
Yes, and that is important.
That
it's important, and it's important for it to be authentic. Authentic with the children's best interests at heart, like their future at heart. Like you're thinking about not just the now, but their future. And I don't think that that's too much to ask for.
It's not. And we're going to go to Dominique. Dominique done put a heartfelt comment in. She says, can I chime in on, well, I can't chime in on Metro Schools momentarily. I placed my daughter in homeschool to keep her healthy and learning without interruptions. To me, schools are only running right now to keep their funding. The more kids, the more money the school gets. The kids aren't learning. Everyone is getting sick. Kids and faculty are missing multiple days. It's a mess.
You know, I've been hearing this from a lot of Black families. I was actually having a conversation about this morning with a colleague and with a reporter, a national reporter, about how Black parents have had to pivot, and there's a movement for parents that they're basically homeschooling. You know, their kids, they're pushing back against the system and saying, you know, enough is enough. And if, you know, let me try it. Like if you ain't gonna do it right, you know, you ain't never got it right. I'm tired of waiting on you. My child's time is precious. I'm gonna try this thing at the crib.
Yeah.
We might as well go to the crib.
Yeah.
We might as well go to the crib, because you know, when you pass by McDonald's and you got stuff at home, French fries and hamburger, and you know, it's like, well, I don't want to get in that long line at that McDonald's and my food is coming. I might as well go to the crib. I can put my stuff up at the crib. That's what parents are saying.
And having an attitude and getting the order on, you know, it's things are intentional, and I mean, we just keep connecting good fast food to similarities in good schools. Like you get those, you know, going back to what Elsie said, Ms. Perez was saying that, like, how do you help your children if they don't have time to talk to the parents? And like that service of receiving communication from the school, not seeming rushed, making sure they're able to explain things. And when you don't get that, like 1 or 2 times, I think we understand, like, people get busy. But if that's what you get every single time, you start to ask yourself, like what's up? Like,
and thank you guys for sharing, because we can't let people forget the toll that this is taking on our families. Like, people are trying to, like, they're not talking about it in the way that it needs to be talked about. One of the parents on here said children are getting sick. Students getting COVID back to back. And so we have to make sure that we're amplifying that. Otherwise, they'll forget about us. Like being put on slave ships and then nobody even know you was put on there.
You just, one day you're here and the next day you're not.
And we have to have those conversations, and we have to keep We have to keep that out front. We have to keep that out front. Otherwise, business as usual. People will go back to business as usual, forgetting about Black kids. We cannot let them forget about Black kids. That's who we represent. I love white children too. We represent white children too. But we must represent Black children because they are oftentimes forgotten and left out of the equation.
And just as you say that, Sonia, like going back to the formula, it says, as we look at the new monies that are going to be pumped in and you're connecting the two, the students we need to support, it says districts would receive additional dollars for specific student subgroups that are sometimes harder or more expensive to educate, like students who are living in poverty, English language learners, students with disabilities, or students who qualify for a Section 504, like a dyslexia plan.
Can you stop for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Go back to that sentence where you talk about harder. Can you read that?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody else that sees a problem in that sentence? Can you read that again?
Districts would also receive additional dollars for specific student subgroups that are sometimes harder or more expensive to educate.
Stop right there. That is being led, that conversation is being led with hopelessness.
Mm-hmm.
As a parent, I would never look at my child and say, you harder for me to parent.
Mm-hmm.
How dare them? I'm sorry, but that just did something to my spirit. What do you mean they're harder? I'm sorry. I had to stop you right because I think that parents need to listen for stuff like that. What are you too Black?
Mm-hmm.
You too poor. You ain't got no attention span. You get on my nerves. You too much. That's all I heard in that.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we want to also talk about, like as we talk about, I want to say she graduated out of our fellowship, maybe class 10, but Samaria Leach. And one of the things we want to do on here next week is get her to tell a story. And, the story is inspirational because if it were up to the system, you wouldn't know who her daughter is, and her daughter would have just got pushed through the system. But that woman, Miss Leach, is such an inspiration, looking at her Facebook page, and she just really highlights the accomplishments of her daughter who, from cheerleading, graduating high school, like being respected amongst her peers, going to the prom, but also now things that even I haven't been able to achieve, like enrolled in Vanderbilt. And not just enrolled, but she is a full-time student academically and socially. And it's amazing to see. You guys don't want to miss that, like really highlighting the power of parents who refuse. Like Sonia, you said, like, what does that mean? I'm pretty sure Ms. Leach probably would have said the same thing because they didn't give her any chances.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we fight for children no matter their disability. How dare you?
Mm-hmm.
See, any athlete, any scholar, any person that wants to win,
Mm-hmm.
any system that really wants to win, you don't worry how hard it's going to be. You don't have time. You don't have time to worry about how hard something is going to be. I had this talk with my son yesterday. You don't have time. He's got some stuff going on. You don't have time to worry about how hard it is.
Yep.
Because you're spending time on something that don't matter. You just need to know what the target is.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to set high expectations for yourself and for children. And that's what Miss Leach did. Miss Leach, she said, I know what it looked like.
Right.
I know what it looked like. I birthed her. I know what y'all see.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell y'all what it's gonna be.
Right.
And that's what has to happen with our children. It don't matter that they Black and they poor, they're struggling from a struggling community. They live in 37207, 37208. It doesn't matter. What matter is where we're gonna take them. We're gonna take them out of that. Stop thinking about children as struggles and hard. Stop thinking about that. How dare anybody look at a child as a struggle? You weak. The system is weak.
And in the end on, and it just gives me like motivation to keep going. I remember we had a young father we did a couple of one-on-ones with, and his issue was his son wasn't getting the support he needed in school academically. You know, I ended up following up with the parent, I want to say 2 weeks ago. And I remember every time we did the one-on-one, like, this is what I want. Like, we were sending messages, we were setting up meetings at the school. He was like, I know what my son needs. And he told me about 2 weeks ago, it's like, you know, from his son struggling to him having his son get a job and making his own money and realizing that, like, I can do it, to then, like, falling off and, like, having to spend time, like, right now in juvenile because they thought his son was too difficult. And all meanwhile, this dad knew, give my son a chance. Get him some real academic help. He was like, you know, he a freshman, but he really like in the 6th grade. Like, and that, you know, that's hard for a parent to admit. But he opened up. And I never forget that. It's like, you know, he a freshman, but it's like he in the 6th grade. And it was just like, it's not just your son. It's not. So this ain't a you thing.
Yeah, you can't go across town and find children like that.
Come on now.
You're not gonna find very much of that. But in our neighborhood, that's what you find. And when you take somebody who we're highlighting today, Miss Lagra Newman, who opened up the school in one of the most struggling communities with the highest incarceration rate in this country, and you take those same children who are connected to the same system, who live in these same neighborhoods, and you set high expectations, and you believe in them, and you inspire them, and you come with a bullseye, a target, and say, no, this is what we're going to get. That lets me know the system is failing, because she's taking them same children, them same parents that they're saying that are hard to teach. You know, all of those things. She's taking those same children and doing it. So I'm not letting nobody get away with that. Shout out to Miss Lagra Newman, who we are recognizing as a part of Black history right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, not only is she a school leader, but she is an activist. She is an activist. She is producing. She is not only saying it, she is doing it. And so, Lagra, we celebrate you. We celebrate you. We champion you. We are ambassadors for the work that you do. Thank you for what you're doing for, in particular, Black children right here in Nashville, Tennessee. No matter what the odds are, you making it happen.
Yeah, and just to give a little color to the picture, you know, Sonia talked about the type of school she runs, and it's a lot of work, right? To be tapped in, to give people that excellent customer service day in, day out, week in, month out. But this was a Saturday. Late morning, early afternoon, a community meeting.
I remember that. It was dreary outside. It was kind of dreary. Yeah.
And as a new mother, right? You work the whole week to like cater to your kids and make sure they're getting the excellent education. The color behind this picture, this is a Saturday with her baby, with a new baby, out at a community meeting, not just listening in, but tapping in to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And so I just thought that was awesome to give the color because, as parents, teachers, educators, it's hard. And so when you think about a Saturday, anybody would have gave her grace. Be like, oh, you don't need to come out, like, do great things Monday through Friday for our kids and you're good. But for her, it wasn't enough. For her, it was like, let me come out to make sure not just Monday through Friday, but Saturday and even Sundays, like we're continuing to engage to make sure we provide excellent education for our kids.
She exemplifies by any means necessary to
Mm-hmm.
me. That's the modern day, by any means necessary and without excuse.
Mm-hmm.
This is what is going to happen to these children. And I'm going to provide everything I need to. I'm going to create a space where I'm going to put them on a trajectory for success.
Mm-hmm. So, guys, thank you. We got, it's Black History Month. We want to continue to honor people. So if you have good Black history facts, feel free to send them in. Like, seeing, reading is believing. Like, when we don't read about our people and the great things that they have accomplished, like a new element on the periodic table, the scientists behind, the movie Hidden Figures that made sure we got to the moon after those rocket ships blew up countless times. It took real strong, smart, intelligent Black women who, although they were getting the man to the moon, still had to operate in separate places. And so it's important for our kids to know where they came from, and to have the ability to know where they're going. Next Tuesday, we'll have our campaign call with our alumni, so be ready for that. At the end of the month, we got our speaker series. On the 23rd, just backtracking a little bit, we're taking a delegation to the Capitol, just as we tap in. This is a local, state, and federal type of game, and we want to make sure our parents understand where the power lies on each level, and that day they'll be realizing where the power lies on the state level.
Yes, sir. And I'm excited. We're going to take about 20 parents, 20, 30 parents
Yep.
up the Capitol Hill, and we're going to join in with Memphis Lift and a few other organizations around the state to come together and to take, to me, collective action, and to speak up and speak out about our children. We're not going to let people forget our children.
Right.
These state laws that are being passed are laws that are affecting our children the most, and we can't afford not to show up there. And so on the 23rd, if you can take off work, if you can move your schedule around, I think that this is something that warrants you doing that. I think it's that important that you do that. So let us know if you can join us. We do know it's a work day. We understand it, but it's just some meetings you got to be at.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is one, as John always says, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna tell you something: when we don't show up at the state, then we are most definitely on the menu.
Mm-hmm. It's that simple. Last reminder: school option for the optional. It's this Friday, February the 11th is the deadline. We just put the link in there. If you need help, reach out to us. There's a whole team dedicated for Metro Schools that can help you walk through the process. There's an enrollment center. We know some parents are struggling just to understand it. So if you need help, let us know. Click on that website. If you can't find it, let us know and we'll connect you to the right people. The past speaker series, we had Ashford Hughes and his team come on and just really talk through the process. And they were gracious enough to also give his email so he can connect parents to the right resource in order to get the support.
And John, I cannot leave today without saying rest in peace to Santonio Beard, who was one of the greatest running backs to hit Metro Schools. He was two-time, you know, I think two-time state championship, and won multiple accolades. And I cannot leave today without highlighting that accomplishment and saying rest in peace and prayers for his friends and family.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'll show you. It was Sports Illustrated ran a story just about who he is and his impact on football. So that was pretty touching to know. Like just the people, he never met a stranger. If you ever met Santonio, never met a stranger. And it is a hard loss. Once it happened, my Facebook just lit up with just friends that I've met, friends that I grew up with who got a chance to play with them at Pearl. And I agree, Sonya. Like, thank you for bringing that up. Definitely a true loss to Nashville.
Yes.
All right, guys, we will see you next week. Thank you guys for tuning in and have a great week. Enjoy this 60-degree weather in
All right,
February.
now. And it snowed a couple of days.
Yeah.